We're adding to our rule of life. Remember, a rule of life is a tool like a trellis that gets vines up off the ground and guides their direction or helps them move, grow in a healthy direction versus be susceptible to disease and infection and spoilage, ravaging, being on the ground. So a trellis is just a tool, right? You don't eat the trellis, you eat the grapes on the trellis. So our rule of life is a tool to help us, to enable and equip us to deconstruct what brings us out from under the influence of Jesus and reconstruct the kind of habits and practices that bring us under the influence of Jesus, helping us to learn to live and love like Jesus. So that's kind of my definition of a rule of life. We're all building one. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're looking. I want to just talk a little bit about Justin Earley's habit of phone off for 1 hour, right? You're going to be hard pressed to find a biblical passage that says turn your phone off because they didn't have phones, right? But they did have a need to turn themselves toward God, to recognize that if they go in a direction that is counter to God, it's going to erode their intimacy and their connection with God. And so the Bible talks a lot about us resisting things that pull us from Him and embracing things that draw us to Him. Kind of case in point, you've got Romans 12:2. Do not conform any longer to the pattern of this world. And certainly, the cell phone on its very best is one of the most spectacular inventions of the 21st century. Hands down, the utility of a cell phone is enormous. But the cell phone also undermines us. It undermines our values, it undermines our relationships, it undermines our being present. So this idea of phone off is a way to kind of shift from focusing on this world. Colossians chapter 3, verse 1, the Apostle Paul says, since then you've been raised with Christ. In other words, you've had this new resurrection life in Christ. Set your heart on things above, not on earthly things. Set your mind on things above, not on earthly things. So both our heart and our mind have to be set on something other than this world. Not very often. I mean, it can, the smartphone can help you set your mind and heart on things above, things that are God directed, but it's not a very good ratio. There was a study done several years ago on millennials, and they said that the average millennial has about 3,000 hours of phone time a year. 3,000 hours of phone time a year. Only 150 of those hours had anything to do with religious or spiritual information. That's about a 20 to 1 ratio. That kind of ratio is not enough to turn the tide. It's not enough to help us draw our hearts toward Jesus. Jesus said, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Where your thesaurus is that word treasure. It's a thing you value. Most of us value our phone so much, we can't even imagine having it turned off for an hour. The thought of it kind of makes us anxious. So, if you will practice this habit, I believe it will be a tool to help you become more aware of your dependence on your phone and your need to break that dependence in order to create a greater dependence on Jesus, a greater dependence on Him. So I hope you will. I hope you'll add it to your rule of life, because when you do, I believe that it can do three things very powerfully. The problem with a cell phone is that it causes us to be distracted. It causes us to be absent from ourselves, from God, and from others. The cell phone, even with all of the wonderful things that it can provide for us, because of its addictive nature, causes us to be absent from ourselves, God, and others. So by turning the cell phone off for 1 hour, it can empower you to begin to practice detachment from this device, this dependence from this device, and shift your attachment more to God and your dependence more to Him. I hope you'll practice it. Let us know. Give us some feedback about how it goes. And throughout the year, we'll be giving more information for you to constantly be refining your rule of life to help you deconstruct what pulls you out from under the influence of Jesus and reconstruct the kind of habits and practices that make you more like Him. God bless you. Have a great day.